I know I haven't been able to cover as many Jets games as I would like to due to the fact that I'm just busy at times, and I watch a lot of games on the go, like I've said before, on my phone, and I just don't have the access to be able to make videos properly the way I want you guys to be able to get this information that I have to share. I just don't want to put up a crappy version of it. And I didn't talk about this in the Leafs. I didn't get a chance to talk about that 5-2 victory over the Leafs on Thursday, but I wanted to bring that game up in particular because the Winnipeg Jets in that game showed up against a top-tier performer in the North Division, the scariest team minus the Jets that almost anyone is going to say. I don't think there's anyone arguing that Montreal is as scary as the Leafs are or that they're better than the Jets at this point. But the Jets, they went out against the top team in the North and they won. They won a hard game and they played great hockey and they won 5-2. And that was a great game for the Jets, coming off of a game that was, in my opinion, very boring, lackluster, and not the greatest against the Ottawa Senators at times, especially when it was 3-2. And then you have to realize that that was on a back-to-back, Wednesday, Thursday. They played back-to-back pretty decent games, back-to-back wins. One game that was not as good as the other, by per se, against a weaker opponent, but they were able to get the win and go into against a better opponent and win. And then you get a couple days off. I guess 1 day is the best thing to say, coming into Saturday's game today. And what do you get? Nothing more than a horrible performance by the Jets, where at times there were bright spots, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to take away the fact that the Jets didn't play in a horrendous game, because 3-0 is a bad score, don't let me wrong, but there were elements of the Jets game tonight that wasn't horrible. But the thing that makes this game way worse than what it actually is, in my opinion, than how as a whole, was the fact that this was against the Oilers. The Oilers are the only team that I am actually genuinely scared of going into a playoff round, or playoff series, I should say, in the North Division this year. Because I actually think the Jets and Leafs match up pretty well at times. Yeah, the Leafs may have been a stronger defense, but offensively, they went out to get Nick Foligno, in my personal opinion, to combat the Jets' bottom six and how they play the game. They're built very similar, how their offense is, and just the talent that they have in the top offensive lines and their top six, and even throughout their lines. The Jets and Maple Leafs are stacked up pretty evenly, and they've played pretty close games this year. Same with Montreal. The Jets have had Montreal's number this year for most of the time, and other than that horrible game we don't want to talk about, the Nathan Beaulieu game I like to talk about where it was a -4 or -5, whatever it was, not enough of that. Point being, the Jets have played very good against Montreal. The Oilers are a team that this season has just been the Jets' number one enemy, it feels like, where they just can't perform to their best abilities. And that scares me going into a playoff series. It really does, because the Leafs and Jets, I could easily see that going 7 games, even 6 games. Unless you're the most arrogant, stupid Leafs fan out there, you're going to say, oh, they got swept or whatever, or game 5 or whatever. But almost every Leafs fan, I think, that actually knows anything amount of hockey will understand the fact that the Jets and Leafs are good and they'll match up well. Same, I think, with the Habs fans would agree that the Habs and Jets could either be a quick series in 5 games, or it could go 6-7 games potentially, depending on how the games were and the matchup was every night with defense and what type of goaltender showed up for the Habs. But when it comes to the Oilers, the Jets' top 6 just doesn't perform against the Oilers. They don't. It genuinely concerns me how horribly matched our top 6 is with the Edmonton Oilers' top line. And don't get me wrong, I know that there is no one really on the Jets that compares to a McDavid or a Draisaitl for the Oilers, and that's fine. You don't really, a lot of teams don't. Most teams in the league don't have a duo that is on that par, because this duo is on par with nothing we've almost ever really seen in the NHL going back to the 80s. So that's a concerning thing for most teams to have to face when you play the Oilers. But the Jets' top 6 doesn't match up well because they are a very loosey-goosey offense. They don't really have set plays. They thrive off of each other's offense and the zone entries that they create, and the opportunities that they use to score, they kind of just come from whatever they can make happen in the offensive zone, or in the neutral zone, rather, that as well. The Jets don't really have a lot of set plays. They don't play the game a certain way. They're very, translucent with their offense, I like to say, because they can strike any way. Their bottom 6 can come up and kill you with a net-driving, gritty goal, or they can have guys like their fourth line playing grit against you and just take advantage of a mistake, or you have the top 6 that just dangles around you and creates opportunities. The Jets don't have set play in particular, but when you look at the Oilers and how they thrive off of those 2 players and how the rest of their lineup is just based around those 2 guys, the Oilers and Jets don't match up well, and the McDavid and the Draisaitl thrive off of that loosey-goosey, nothing sent offense, because they don't know what their Jets are going to come out and hit them with every night when they play. They have no idea, because every time it's been different. If we can go back to that game where Neil Pionk was the McDavid stopper and a beast that game, laying the body, stopping him in the middle of the ice, being an amazing player, where was that for the rest of the season? Because that was one matchup that they didn't expect, and it happened. And now when they play against these Jets, they take advantage of Neil Pionk sometimes. And yeah, Neil Pionk was okay tonight, I thought too. He wasn't horrible, but the point is that the Oilers are a smart team because they thrive off these two guys. And if what's the purpose of having depth like the Jets do when your depth has to play against McDavid's top line to try to shut them down because your offensive in your top six can't do anything? The Jets were so stale today offensively, and more importantly, the top six was horrendous in my opinion. The only bright spots came from the bottom six in the defense at times, I thought. The top six almost didn't show up at all. And this is one of those games, like I say, that is concerning because after playing the Leafs 5-2 and winning, after coming off of a win against the Senators where you had a horrible performance the 2 nights before on the Monday, where you lost 4-2, coming into a game against the Oilers, you know this is going to be tough competition. Hear me out. From the Thursday where the Jets played the Oilers on the 15th, all the way until the 28th of the month, almost the end of April, we're playing the Leafs and Oilers. Those are the only teams the Jets will be playing almost for the remaining month of April. That is not a good look if you were the Jets, because the Oilers have had your numbers more than the Leafs had. And you need to try to catch the Leafs right now in hopes that you don't play the Oilers, I think, or do anything that in your power to not be in the Oilers in the playoffs. I genuinely just think the Oilers would be the death of the Jets in the playoffs. I just don't think they could beat them. And that doesn't make me some pessimistic, dumb fan. It makes me a concerned fan, because I just don't like an Oilers-Jets matchup. Every time we really played the Oilers this year, they haven't been good performances. The offense has been stale at times, and you can't just expect Connor Hellebuyck to be an inhuman goaltender every time you play the Oilers. And also, people that on the side of things that go into the Oilers goaltending, people are always like, oh, the Oilers goaltending is weak. The problem with the Oilers goaltending is that you might get Mike Smith on a bad night, or you might get him on a night like we saw today, or other nights in the past as well. Mike Smith just seems to thrive at random opportunities, and he's just been that way for a majority of his career, or later career. And when you have a goaltender like that, you never know what you're going to get. And the Jets can't rely on Hellebuyck to be a god every night, because let's be realistic, he's not. He's a fantastic goaltender, and he is an inhumane goaltender, but he's not a god. He can't stop everything. Not every night, because then he'd have shutouts every night, and he'd be a Vezina winner for the rest of his career. But he's not that type of goaltender, because no one is. You can't put all your faith on one guy on one hand and ride it out every time against a matchup where you just clearly seem to be outmatched. I hope Paul Maurice can somewhat figure out a way within the next few games we play the Oilers. The next, I would say, few games we really play the Oilers should be his opportunity to try to juggle the lines, to try to maybe do something to help get some more grit and defense out of his top six, so that they can play a different style of hockey or do something. And I know that's asking him to do, basically asking for the moon, because he doesn't do anything when it comes to changing the top six. We know Scheifele will never leave that center dot, even if it might be for the better matchup of having Dubois slot in with Scheifele on the wing. That could be an interesting possibility. We have yet to really see that yet. We don't know what the Jets' identity still is going into the playoffs, because Paul Maurice refuses to adapt in his lines to really do anything that could match up well, in my opinion. And don't get me wrong, this game wasn't horrible at times. I will say that it wasn't, but it's concerning to me because we're nearing the end of the season, and the Oilers have been that one team that have had the Jets' numbers that are most likely a playoff opponent for us at this time. So if that's the playoff opponent that you're going into, that's concerning in my opinion. And you need to do whatever you can to not have meet that opponent in the playoffs. It's going to be an interesting run to the end of the year to see what happens, but nonetheless, the Jets are going to have to do much better, in my opinion, at matching up and playing a better brand of hockey against the Oilers, because we saw what they could do against the top team in the North, in the Leafs. And then you come into a game against the Oilers where they show up flat-footed again, and they just don't play a good brand of hockey, but this is a common trend. When will it change, and when will we see some type of production from this top six and from this team against the Oilers that actually can, worry us a little bit less going into a potential playoff round with them in this year's playoffs? But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, as always, ladies and gentlemen. I want to know all your thoughts on this game. If you're thinking of the Oilers as an opponent as I do, what opponent you're scared of the most, anything you have to think about the Jets and what they played this game and coming up, let me know in your comment section down below. As always, make sure to follow all my socials, links in the description as always as well. Make sure to go do that to stay connected with me on various different platforms. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. More importantly, subscribe if you're a fan of hockey, regardless of the team you root for, as we're pushing towards that 1K subscriber mark. Thank you so much for all the support in the channel lately. It's been amazing, and you know how I'm very appreciative of that in every video, and I still am in this one, so thank you so much for showing that awesome support. Peace, love, and positivity as always, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you in the next video. Go Jets, go.